Welcome everybody to a fun series of videos that's going to teach us how to make a very simple game in Scratch. These videos assume that you have no experience with Scratch, so if you know some stuff with Scratch, please be creative, explore. Even if you don't have any experience, please be creative and explore, expand on these concepts, try new things, make mistakes. You're not going to break anything. You're invited to pause the videos, replay the videos, and if you have any questions, ask a friend. Consult the internet. There's a ton of resources out there for Scratch. And if you need to, ask your teacher. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm already logged into my Scratch account. If you're not, please do so, and then create a new project. We're going to give my project a title. I'm going to call mine Asteroid Shooter. This is the Scratch user interface. On the left, I have 3 tabs. This tab is where I'm going to write all of my code in blocks. It's color-coded. In this tab, I have all the costumes for my sprites and my backgrounds. I can choose a costume from Scratch's library. I can create my own. I can have Scratch guess for me what I want, or I can upload something from my computer, maybe a picture that I've downloaded from the internet. In this tab, I have sounds. It works very similarly. I can create my own. I can add them from Scratch's library, and I can have a number of different sounds for this sprite. Notice that this is highlighted, so all of these tabs relate to this sprite. In the center of my screen is the canvas, and this is where I'm going to click and drag to write my code. And again, all of this code is for this sprite here. Over here on the right, I have my view screen. Right now it is normal size. I can also make it smaller so I have more room for coding if I want. Here in the middle is the information panel for my sprite. Here I have a name. Here is my XY coordinates. So my location is determined by an XY coordinate plane, XY coordinate pair. Here I can show or hide my sprite. Here is the current size of my sprite. I can make it larger. I can make it smaller. And here's the direction that my sprite is facing. Down below will be my list of sprites. I can again choose from Scratch's library. I can make my own. I can upload from my computer. And finally, over here, I have backdrops. These things do not move. They are the wallpaper behind everything that's happening on my screen. Finally, make sure that you click the Save Now button like a crazy person. Sometimes the Scratch website will freeze and you may lose your progress. If that happens, you can select File and Save to your computer, and then later load that file from your computer. Happy scratching.
How to do some computer programming.
The first step for any Scratch project, after fully establishing my plan, is to create my sprites. In this game, I'm going to have a meteor sprite, a heart sprite, a rocket sprite, a start button sprite, and a C leaderboard button sprite. For my rocket sprite, I'm going to select from Scratch's library. And I'm going to delete the Scratch cat because I don't need it. For my meteor sprite, I'm going to create my own. I made an oval and I filled it with gray. No outline. I'm going to use my paintbrush with a slightly lighter fill to make some little dots on my meteor. Change the color, change the size. You make your meteor look however you want. And the final step will be to make sure that my sprite is centered in my canvas. This is a very important step for any sprite. And I always want to name the elements of my game, so I'm going to name my sprite Meteor. Now in my sprite lists here, this meteor looks too small, which tells me that something isn't right in my canvas. So I'm going to go over here and select all, and sure enough, there's a tiny little dot over there. So I'm going to select that and remove it, and you'll now see that my meteor is full size. My next sprite is going to be my hearts. This will be for counting lives. And for this, I'm going to want 3 different costumes, because I will have 3 lives. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to duplicate this. Copy and paste. Okay, now that I have 3 hearts, I'm going to make sure that they're placed in the center. And then I'm going to remove the single heart because I want them to align all at the same place. So this will be my 3 hearts. I'm going to duplicate this twice, and I would delete 1 for this one, and then I will delete 2 for this one. I'm going to rearrange them so they're in order. I'm going to retitle them. So this is Heart 1, Heart 2, and Heart 3. And I'm going to stop there for now. In the next video, we'll create the next 2 sprites.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, I have 2 more sprites to make. These are going to be for my start screen. One will be a start screen button, and the other will be a See Leaderboard button. Both of these I'm going to create from scratch. And I've made this circle to round out my button, but right now it's in front, and I want to move it behind that box. I use my selector tool to select it, copy, and paste. I'm going to draw a green box to get rid of these lines. So I'm going to get rid of the border. Using my arrow keys, I'm going to move it where I want. Copy, paste. Now I'm going to use the text tool. Now it's in green, so I'm going to select all and change the font color. I'd like it to be white. I'd also like to change the font. Scratch has a few limited options. Okay, I like my start button. I'm going to select all and make sure that I move it to the center of my sprite. Oh, but again, it looks like there's something off here in the corner. These dots everywhere. Okay, now I can select all and make sure that my sprite is in the center of my canvas. There I have a start button, and I'll make sure that I name it. Now I need a See Leaderboard button, but I don't want to have to do all that work again. So I'm going to right-click my start button and duplicate it and change a few things, and voila, I will have a different button. So I'm going to change the fill. Let's make this one kind of a yellow color. So now I have 2 buttons. There's any number of ways that you could have accomplished that. You could have downloaded images from the internet. You could use the drawing tools here in a different way. This is the way that I chose to do it. So now we have all of the sprites for our game. Our next step in the next video will be to establish all of our backdrops.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, now I'm going to create the backdrops for my game. In this game, I'm going to have 4 backdrops. One will be for the main gameplay, one will be for the leaderboard, one for the start screen, and one for the end screen. You can make these however you want. I'm going to make mine very simple. For the main gameplay, I'm going to select one from scratch. I'm going to delete the white backdrop. For my start screen, I'm going to have another space backdrop. And I'm going to put some text on it. I can come over to my rocket ship and select all and copy and put it into my start screen. And that's all I'm going to have for my start screen. Later I'll have my start button and my leaderboard button here. For my leaderboard, again, I'm going to make it very simple. For an added effect, I'm going to copy and paste this text and change the color just a little bit. I'm going to send it backward. Now I have a bit of a shadow. And that's it. My final backdrop will be an end screen. And now I have all the backdrops for my game. In the next video, we're going to start coding.
How to do some computer programming.
We'll start with our stage and go to code. And I want an event. Every block of code needs an event. When the green flag is clicked, so when I start the game, I want to switch the backdrop to the start screen. Oh no, I didn't name my backdrops. Let's fix that. I'm going to switch to the start screen. Let's test it. Haha, already working. Now let's go to each of our sprites and tell them what to do when we start the game. Do I want to see the rocket ship? No. So when I click the green flag, I want to hide. Let's test it out. Same thing for the meteor. So I can just copy this code right over there. Same thing for the hearts. The start button, I want to show. Same thing for the other button. Let's test it. Ta-da! I can click and drag my sprites to where I want them. And just to be sure, I want them to be in the same X location. So along this X axis. So start is on -90. I want the leaderboard button to also be the same. Now I know that they're aligned. Beautiful. When I start the game, everything goes to where it should.
How to do some computer programming.
When we get to the leaderboard, we need a way to get back to the start screen. So I'm just going to duplicate this start button to create a new button. Also, this gives me a chance to show something that I missed earlier. Before, when I wanted to change this color of the button, I had to do it individually by element in the button, and that just took too long. So what I can do is select all of these elements, group them together, and then change the color all at once. So by selecting one element and holding the Shift button, I'm holding Shift, I can select multiple items at the same time. Now I can group these. Now I should be able to fill them with a different color. Ta-da! Finally, I will give it a name.
How to do some computer programming.
Now I'm going to establish the size and position of all my sprites at the beginning of the game. So I have placed all of my buttons where I want them to go, and I have sized them the way that I want them. Now I need to do that with my other sprites. So I'm going to start with my rocket ship, but I'd like to get everything out of the way so I can see it. So I can manually hide these sprites. There we go. And let's hide all the others. So I'm just working with my rocket ship, which is currently hidden. There it is. So I want it to be a different size. Let's say 40%. That looks great. Now I'm going to click it and drag it. I want it right about there. And I'm going to put it in the middle. So x equals 0. That's exactly where I want it. So at the beginning of my game, I want it to go right there. So I'm going to go to motion. And if I grab this go to X, Y block, you'll notice that by default, the X and Y values are the same as its current position. That makes it very convenient. So I'm going to hide first and then go there. I'm going to hide that and do the same thing with the meteor. Let's show it. I want it to, actually, I don't care where it goes because later we're going to establish its position. So I'm going to move on to the hearts. Okay, I need those much smaller. That looks better. I'm going to click it and drag it up here. That looks great. Beautiful. Start button, leaderboard, and home. Let's test it out. Wonderful. It's always a good idea to also set the size. That's just in case later, if I change the size of my sprite, I can reset it at the beginning of my game. This is kind of resetting all the parameters of your game at the very beginning. And even though I didn't change the size of my buttons, I'm still going to tell the game to set the size to 100% at the beginning of the game, again, just in case I change that later. And now I'm done.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, now I'm going to add some functionality to these buttons. And I'm going to use something called a broadcast. So in my events, I'm going to get a when this sprite clicked block, and I'm going to broadcast a message. I've already created some broadcasts, and these are what they're named. And naming these broadcasts doesn't do anything. It just tells me what it's for. And so I have a broadcast for end, home, leaderboard, and start. So when this start button is clicked, I want to broadcast start. And then I want the button to hide. And then I have some other broadcasts that I want this start button to respond to. So when I receive my end broadcast, I also want to hide. When I receive the home broadcast, which is what will happen when I click the home button in the leaderboard, I want it to show. And finally, when I receive the leaderboard broadcast, I also want to hide. Great, I'll double check that that's all right. And then I'm going to duplicate everything over to leaderboard and to home button and change the show and hide depending on the broadcast that is transmitted. And finally, I'm going to use these broadcasts to change the backdrop. So I'm going to go to my stage. When I hear these broadcasts, I'm going to switch the backdrop. So when I receive end, I want to go to the end screen. When I receive home, I want to go to the start screen. When I receive leaderboard, I want to go to the leaderboard screen. And when I receive start, I want to go to the main game screen.
How to do some computer programming.
And now some fun stuff. I want my rocket to move whenever I push the arrow keys on my keyboard. So to do that, I'm going to use this receive start broadcast. And under it, I'm going to put a forever loop. And so this block will do whatever I put inside of it forever. So in there, I'm going to say, if I'm pressing a key, then do something. So in my sensing blocks, we'll grab a key space pressed and change space to the left arrow. And when the left arrow is pressed, I'm going to change my X position. I'm moving along an X axis. Remember, the X axis goes horizontally like this. And if I move positive on that number line, I move to the right. If I change my value in a negative direction, I'm moving to the left. So I'm going to move -7. I'm going to see what that looks like. I'm going to click this block of code to run it. There it is. But I can't move right yet. So I'm going to duplicate this if block, put it underneath, but still inside the forever loop. I'm going to change left to right and change this -7 to a +7. And now I should be moving left and right.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, before I start this one, I want to acknowledge that I realized I named this game incorrectly. The name implies that I'm going to be shooting these asteroids, and that's not true. It's just too much for us to do in this time. If you later want to add a shooting element, be my guest. But for this game, we're just going to move left and right and avoid these meteors. So with that said, let's begin. And we're going to add some animation to this rocket. So as it moves left and right now it's kind of boring, and I want it to animate a little bit as it goes. So in my when green flag clicked lock, I'm going to add another forever loop, and I'm going to use an if else block. So if this condition here is met, it will do whatever is inside here. If not, it will do this. So the cool thing about this block is that it will do one or the other ones. Whereas with this if then block, it would only do this if this condition was met and there's no second option for it. So in this if else block, one or the other will execute. And the if statement will be is if any key is pressed, whether it's the left or the right. So I can change space to any, and I'm going to go to my next costume. And if I'm not pressing it, then I want to switch the costume to this blank one where it's not moving. So that's rocket ship E. So I will change, there it is. Let's test this out. Oh, wonderful. Now it's moving along. That's the way that I want it. Smash that save now button.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, now we're going to begin animating this meteor sprite. So when I receive start, I actually want to hide. And then I'm going to have a forever loop, and I'm going to create some clones of myself. And this is also in the control blocks. I'm going to create a clone of myself, and I'm going to wait a certain period of time. I'm going to wait 2 seconds. Okay, so I can do this now. I click on it. It's going to create clones. I don't see them right now because when I started, I said you're going to hide. So what I want to do in addition now is say that when I start as a clone, I want to show. And after I show, I want to go to a location. In fact, I'm going to go to the location and then show. So I'm going to go to the very top of the screen. And the very top of the screen is about 175 along the y-axis. Remember, our y-axis goes vertically. So positive 175 should get me to the top. But I don't want it to start at the same x location every time. So I'm going to pick a random number. And let's go between negative 200 and positive 200, and then we'll show. And let's test this and see if it's working. There's one clone, there's another clone, there's another clone. It's working beautifully.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, now we're going to tell these clones to move. So after we've told them to go to a random X position at the top of the screen and show themselves, we're going to move. And we're going to use a repeat block, but this is going to have a condition on it. We're going to repeat our movement until something happens. So inside that, I want to change my Y value in a negative direction so that I'm moving down the screen. Let's just start with a -5 and see what that looks like. And the condition here is going to be a less than block. And I'm going to go until my Y position drops below a certain value. So Y position, and I want it to go to the bottom of the screen, which is about -170. Let's do that. And at the bottom of that, after that condition is met, it will jump out of this loop because this condition is true, and I'm going to delete that clone. Now let's test this to see if it's working. Oh, it's falling, and it's deleting itself when it gets to the bottom. It's working.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, now I have meteors falling down from the sky, but they look very static and boring. So I'm just going to add a little bit of elements to make it change a little bit. So after I go to my location, I'm going to set my size to a random size. Set my size to, let's go, I don't know, 70% to 100%. Now let's see what's happening. So I'm getting a little bit smaller and a little bit bigger. And that looks a little bit better. And I'm also going to rotate in a random location. So I'm going to point in direction. And again, this is all before I show myself. I'm going to get another random operator. And since we're going in a circle, it'll be random between 0 and 360 degrees. So this should randomize things a little bit. Super. Smash that Save Now button.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, in this video, we're not going to end up with too much changing, but we're going to work with variables, and this is going to open up things for us as coders. We're going to end up with 3 variables. And so similar to your math class, a variable is just a placeholder that can represent any value. We can define it any way that we want, and we can change the value of that variable. So we're going to go to variables here, and we're going to create 3 variables for our game. One will be lives, and we're going to have this for all sprites. We're going to have this for score. And we're going to have a clone rate variable. Now, the names of these variables, just like our broadcasts, don't do anything. Again, they just tell us what they are. They're labels or names of the variables. But it's important that we label them to be something that we understand as coders, because in complex games, we're going to have lots and lots of variables, and we want our variables to tell us what they do. I want all of them to be visible. So these checkboxes are whether they're visible on the screen. I want the clone rate to be visible. I don't want it to be visible. I don't want lives to be visible. I do want score to be visible. And for right now, I'm going to put it over here. And that's all for this video. Click the Save Now button.
How to do some computer programming.
We're going to use this clone rate tool to add an element of increased challenge as the game goes on. Right now, as those meteors fall, they fall at a constant rate of 2 every 2 seconds. And we want that to get a little bit faster as the game goes on. And I'm going to use this clone rate variable. So what I'm going to do is at the beginning of my game, so when I receive start, I'm going to set that clone rate to 2. And now I can take this variable and place it in here. So now it's going to wait 2 seconds, just like it did before. But now I can change that variable as the game goes on. I'm going to do that by adding a, actually we'll use this when green flag clicked. I'm going to get a forever. I'm going to use an if statement. I'm going to get an equals operator. And inside that equal operator, I'm going to use a modulo operator, also abbreviated as mod. And modulo is the real word in computer programming, often abbreviated as mod. The answer to a mod statement is the remainder of a division between two numbers. So let me give you an example here. 10 mod 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. It divides evenly, which means the remainder is 0. That would satisfy this requirement. 10 divided by 3 is 3 with a remainder of 1. So 10 mod 3 equals 1. 10 mod 4 equals 2. 10 divided by 4 is 8 with a remainder of 2. Then I'm going to get a not operator and a wait until block. There we go. So I'm going to use my clone rate block here. Mod 10 equals 0. What this basically means is when my clone rate, instead of clone rate, I want score. So when my score is at a multiple of 10, so 10, 20, 30, 40, I want this clone rate variable to change and to get a little bit faster. So I'm going to change this clone rate by negative 1/10, okay, negative 0.1, and it should go a little bit faster. And then I'm going to wait until this is not true. There's a lot here going on. If my score becomes a multiple of 10, in other words, the remainder on this division, score divided by 10, if the remainder is 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, then I want it to do this. And it's going to change my clone rate to make it a little bit faster. And then it will jump out here and wait till it is not a multiple of 10. So 21, 31, 41. And once that becomes true, it will come up here and wait until it's a multiple of 10 again. And then it will change it. When it gets to 21, it will come back here, change it, 31, and it will slowly get faster and faster. And if that doesn't make sense and you would like it to make sense, you can look up modulo online, or you can come find me and we can discuss it. In the meantime, smash that Save Now button.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, now I'd like that score to actually be doing something, because right now my score is not changing. That variable doesn't change at all. And so it changes right here. So I'm actually going to add a comment. This is a really helpful tool in any coding language to make some comments. Here, I want to change the score. So this helps me keep track as a coder of what's going on. In fact, I'm going to add one right here. So after my meteor falls below this negative 170 y value, I want it to add to my score. So I'm going to change a variable, and it's going to be my score variable, and I want it to change it to 1. Let's test this out. There you go. I got to the bottom of the screen and it's changing my score. The problem is when I start this game again, I start at that same points. So I need to reset that variable at the beginning of the game. So when the green flag is clicked, set this variable score to 0. And that's it. Click Save.
How to do some computer programming.
Now I want to get this lives variable working. Basically, if I hit a meteor, I want to lose a life. And then if I lose all of my lives, I go to the end screen. Very simple. So I'm going to do that right here. Every time I move, I want to test if I'm touching the rocket ship. So you'll see over here that I'm on the meteor. This is the code for my meteor. And I'm going to say inside there, if I'm touching the rocket ship, then change my lives by -1. Let's see if it works. Good. It does work, but you'll see that as it moves through that rocket, it goes through that loop again and again and again, and it's dropping my score very, very low. And so what I want to do is after I score that point, I want to delete that clone because it's done. Let's try that again. So right there, let's test this again. All sorts of stuff is happening right there.
20 minutes later.
Aha! I see what I did. Instead of delete the clone, I said create clone. My bad. So we change the lives by 1 and delete this clone. There we go. I'm not getting a score, but I'm losing lives. That's exactly the way I want it.
How to do some computer programming.
For this one, we're going to hide and show the score variable depending on where we are in the game. So to do that, I'm in the stage over here because it's all the simple code. So when I receive home, I want to, I want to hide that variable, which is score. When I receive leaderboard, I want to hide that variable. When I receive start, I want to show that variable. And then when I receive end, I want to, we can leave that there. And I'm going to hide lives. We don't ever need to see lives, and here's why. We're going to make these hearts change depending on how many lives we have. So in this when green flag is clicked block, I'm going to grab a forever loop, and I'm going to say set costume to a variable. I'm going to test it. If I lose a life, I should lose a heart. There we go. Excellent. And you know what I'm going to do just for fun of it? I'm going to quickly add a sound. I don't want that sound. Space. Ooh, that sounds fun. I like this teleport sound.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, we're getting very, very close. Now I want to set up the end scene or how it is that I die. So right here where I'm changing my lives by -1, I want to test if I have dropped below 1, meaning that I have lost all my lives. So right there, after I change the lives, well, I don't want those in there. I'm going to get those out, being careful to keep them in that if loop. So if, let's go with, let's use an equals 0. So if my lives equals 0, let's get that lives variable. If lives equals 0, then I'm going to broadcast that message. So these are our events. I broadcast end, and I want to stop other scripts in this sprite. Okay, and I can test it. Okay, sure enough, it works. My broadcast is working, but the meteors still go. So I want to say when I receive end, I want to stop other scripts in this sprite. Let's try it one more time. And it works.
How to do some computer programming.
Our very simple game is working. Everything is doing what it should be doing. The buttons are working, all with the exception of the leaderboard. So let's now set up this leaderboard, and we're going to do this in 4 different videos. First, we're going to create 2 new variables, a high score variable and a new high score variable. So this one will be called high score, and it is for all sprites. And the other one will be a new high score, and I'm going to put a question mark on it. It's going to be a yes or no variable. And I'm going to hide both of these for now. The other thing I'm going to create is a list. A list is like a variable in that we can name it whatever we want, but instead of just one value, it can hold a whole list of values. And so this will be our leaderboard list. And we're going to hide that list. And now I'm going to use the stage to set up our high score coding, because it's the one that has the least amount of coding, and it's also kind of universal for all of our game. So when I receive the home screen, I want to hide the leaderboard list. When I receive the leaderboard list, I want to show it. When I receive start, I want to hide it. And when I receive end, I think I also want to hide. Maybe you can show it later in yours. Never mind, I'm going to show it. And finally, when I show it, I want it to show up over here. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to make it a little bit wider and click save.
How to do some computer programming.
So now we're going to set up how we establish this new variable with high scores. So when I click the green flag, I want to set my new high score to no, because we don't have a new high score yet. And under here, I'm going to put a forever loop. I'm going to constantly test to see if our score has surpassed the high score. So forever, if, and let's use a greater than operator. And I'll say if our current score is greater than our higher score, then set the high score to the current score. And so if I beat the high score, then this will just continually go up. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to set the new high score to yes. And that's it. Click save.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, and now I want to do something with this new high score. So at the end of my game, when it's finished, I'm going to ask if we do have a new score. So I'm going to need an if statement. And where do I want to put that? We'll switch the background. We will show the score. And then if we're going to need an equals operator, if new high score equals yes, then I want to collect the user's name. And I'll put this back on there, and that's it. Smash the save now button.
How to do some computer programming.
Okay, and finally, now we need to do something with this name and this new high score. So after we collect their name, go to variables, we're going to add something to the list. So we're going to add it to the leaderboard list. We're going to add high score. We put this out here. We're going to add the user's name, which is the answer to this question that we asked. Okay, so when they ask that, it will store the answer in this variable. And we're going to get a join operator. In computer programming, we call this concatenation. To concatenate is just to join together. So in this example, it puts these string of characters together, apple and banana, and it makes one word with all of those letters. So we're going to concatenate a couple things. If I just do answer, which is their name, and high score, it's going to say name, and it's going to have their score directly after that. So I want to put a little space in there. So we're going to put high score in there, and we're going to put a couple spaces in between. And I'll put this right above here so I can add it to the leaderboard and then show it. Let's see if this works. Okay, so currently the high score should be 0. So any score that I get should be up there. It didn't ask my name if new, because I didn't get a score. Okay, I do have a new high score. So let's dive. Here we go. My name is Shaver. There we go, on the leaderboard. So at any time, I can come here and delete all of leaderboard if I want. I can do this as the coder. And if I just click a block, it runs that block of code. Ta-da! And I'm going to hide this variable. I think I have a functional game. Except this is ugly. So I'm going to, oh, bummer. I'm going to fix a couple things, but I'll do that on my own. Other than that, we have a functional game, ladies and gentlemen. You can customize this in any way that you want. Have fun. Happy coding. Be creative.